Now that it's June and the official start date of summer is right around the corner, I wanted to do a video using all of my go-to products for the summer season. For the humidity, for the hot weather, I wanted to do a drugstore version, and then I might come back and do a higher end version or just a mix of favorites. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video on all of my favorite long-lasting makeup products, both drugstore and high-end. If you want some recommendations in all different categories, I'll link that video in the description box below. But again, I wanted to come back and do like a full face of my favorites. Makeup that stays in place extremely well, whether it is hot outside or super humid, or you just have a really long day. These products will not let you down. I do have sunscreen on. Sometimes I'll go in directly with foundation or concealer, but if it is an extremely hot day outside or I have a really long day ahead of me, I usually do go in with a primer just to extend the wear of my makeup. So I don't know which one to use today. I either use typically the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer or the e.l.f. Liquid Poreless Putty Primer. I think I'll go with the Liquid Poreless Putty Primer. It's been a little while since I've used this regularly. This is more of a mattifying primer. It's pretty liquidy, so I do recommend shaking it up. It's also very smoothing, and May was kind of rough on my skin. I was dealing with some breakouts. My skin as a whole wasn't looking or feeling its best, so I definitely feel like I would benefit from a good smoothing primer, especially right around the chin. So I typically do work this primer into the skin pretty thoroughly. You can target specific areas. So for example, if you have really large pores around your nose, or that's the only place you feel like you need a smoothing primer, you can definitely just go in on that area. I like to kind of apply it everywhere just because it does create a perfect smooth base. And again, it mattifies the skin well. So if you have oily skin or you're going to be sweating, if it's really hot out, this is a good option. And I do find that it applies nicely on top of pretty much every sunscreen I ever use with it. I like the liquid version of this primer better than the original Poreless Putty Primer. The original option is great, so if you have that, I mean, I do think it serves a similar purpose, but I find that this one is more mattifying. Because it's a liquid, you can just really work it into the skin, press it into certain areas. It takes like 2 seconds. So you can see that it definitely kind of brought down the shine of my sunscreen. If I wasn't wearing a glowy sunscreen underneath, I'd have even more of like a true matte finish. So I definitely love that primer, highly recommend it, but I like this one too. If you like a true glow and you're a fan of sticky, tacky primers, this one's my favorite. For foundation, I am going to use the Catrice HD Liquid Coverage Foundation. I just repurchased this. I typically get mine from Amazon, although you can order directly from the Catrice website as well. It's still a really great affordable option. I think I told you in the video I did on my long-lasting makeup favorites that I've loved this for at least 10 years. I have the shade Light Beige. It is a pretty thin formula, so you can see it kind of dripping down my hand. I would say it has, like a true serum-like texture, but it has amazing coverage. Typically, very thin, serum-y feeling foundations don't have the best coverage. When I think of a serum type foundation, I usually think of like a lighter coverage, more natural foundation, maybe something that looks really glowy on the skin. But this one has amazing coverage. It takes 2 seconds to blend out. I mean, you just saw it blends right into the skin. It does dry down to more of a matte finish. But, if you use a glowier primer underneath or just a glowy sunscreen, that will shine through. I think I told you I have the shade Light Beige. I probably could go one shade darker. I'm always hesitant to go a little bit darker, even when I feel like my face looks a little bit too light, because I don't like when my face is significantly darker than my neck, even when you blend it down onto your neck. Or I mean, even when you blend your foundation, your products down onto your neck, I feel like it's obvious if they're too dark, at least on me. So if I have the choice, I always go like a shade lighter because I can go in with bronzer or even like a bronzing drop to add a little bit more warmth to it. But in the end, I feel like it comes together. Anyway, this is truly such a staple. I tend to wear this the most during the summertime because it is so long wearing. Like, it really does stay in place all day long, no matter what the weather is like, no matter what I'm doing. If it is super humid, I'm sweating, it really doesn't move. So if you like the idea of a fuller coverage option that feels lightweight, that doesn't move, you will love this product. It's also very buildable. So right here, I have some dark spots, some acne scarring. I can just add a little bit more right on top. and it doesn't feel or look cakey at all. So here's how my skin looks with just the primer and the foundation. It does such a great job of evening out my skin tone. You saw my skin before. I'm not having the clearest skin month right now, and it just completely covered up all of the redness, all of the dark spots. And again, I don't think it looks cakey or heavy at all, and it will stay this way all day long. So my favorite concealer that I've been talking about nonstop lately has been the J.Cat Beauty Staysurance concealer. So I have the shade Buff. Actually, before I use that, I am just going to go in with a little bit of cream bronzer. This is the Milani Cheek Kiss Cream Bronzer. I have the shade Hey Honey. I think out of all of my cream bronzers, this is probably the longest lasting formula. Well, either this or the Makeup by Mario one. Obviously, this one is a lot more affordable, and honestly, I tend to prefer cream cheek products in this style of packaging rather than a stick. I think they're just easier to apply to like evenly coat your brush. Since I don't normally go in and draw the stick directly on my face, I feel like this is just so fast and easy to use because, like I said, you can dip your brush right in it. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of cream bronzer. I'm going to go in with powder bronzer later because, again, in the summertime, I usually do end up using both. I just feel like that is the optimal way to make sure your cheek products stay in place well. You don't have to use both. You could totally stick with this one. And again, for a cream, it is pretty long lasting. This one does not have a really intense glowy finish. Where's my foundation brush? I'm just going to go over the edges so it doesn't look quite so harsh. But that's why I like it, because some super dewy, super glowy cream products, they look great initially, but they do tend to break down faster, whereas this one stays in place really well, especially for a cream. So like I said, this J.Cat Beauty Concealer is my absolute favorite when I want my makeup locked in. And I know I've talked about this in a couple of recent videos, although I am pre-filming because I'm actually going to the beach with my family, which will be so nice because May actually wasn't that hot where I live. It rained almost every single day. And when you live in the Northeast and you're desperately waiting for, warm weather, and May is usually one of those months where it's pretty warm and then it rains pretty much every single day, it just feels like an extension of not winter, but like of rainy spring. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to some actual summer weather. So what was I saying? Oh, so I'm just filming a couple of videos ahead of time. So I'm not exactly sure which order they're going up in, but I know that I've been talking about the J.Cat concealer nonstop because I kind of recently rediscovered it. Like I've always known I've loved it, but again, it's not something I really use during the fall and the winter because I don't necessarily need something that locks down as intensely. And like I said, it hasn't been extremely warm yet this year, but there are some days where my skin is a little bit more on the oily side, and it has been kind of humid since it has been raining so much. So I feel like I have been reaching for longer lasting products in general. And I'm telling you, this concealer really does last so well. Like even at the end of the day, if the rest of my makeup is kind of breaking apart or wearing off because I'm not using super long lasting products in other categories, my concealer is still there. I'm just going to apply a little bit of bronzer to the sides of my nose, a little bit orangey for like a typical contour, but I always like to take whatever I'm using and just apply it to the nose as well. And then I just go over it with my concealer brush to kind of tone it down. For powder, I have to be careful because mine cracked and the packaging broke on me, but this is the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop powder, and I have the shade Light. So I'm going to use this to set my under eye concealer to really lock it in. This powder is a little bit yellowy for me right now. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know if it's yellowy for me right now. I feel like I've switched and I kind of prefer more neutral leaning complexion products rather than super warm complexion products. Because this powder does have a little bit of coverage, you can really see like the tone of it on the skin. But look how smooth it is. It completely mattifies the skin, smooths everything out, and locks the products into place. I could actually use a recommendation from you guys. So my favorite loose powder is the Huda Beauty, what's the official name? Like the loose baking and setting powder. Do you have a good drugstore alternative to that one? I mean, the Huda Beauty one is great, but I would love to know if there is a more affordable alternative. I'm just taking a fluffy brush and lightly setting the perimeter of my face. I don't need as much coverage on the outer portions, but again, I do like to kind of give it that you know, give it a fair shot in the hot weather by locking it in, even with just a little bit of powder. Okay, so my base is locked in. It is not going anywhere. At the end, I will use a setting spray. This is the LA Girl Pro Perfect Oil Control Setting Spray. I actually didn't mention this in the video I did on all of my favorite long-lasting makeup products. I just completely forgot to. If I am really trying to lock my makeup into place, I'll actually spray this on after I do my foundation, after I do my powder, and then after I do my cheek products. Today, I'll just use it once at the end, but this is a good option for that because it is such a lightweight setting spray. Before I use that, I am going to do the rest of my makeup. So I'm just going to go in with the NYX Thick It Stick It Brow Gel. This is my normal brow routine that I typically do in most of my videos. I do find this to be a very long-lasting brow product. It's maybe not going to lock your brows in as intensely as like the NYX brow glue. That's not my favorite product, to be honest. I definitely don't think it's a bad product. I think you just have to be going for like a very specific type of look. If you don't have, you know, if you don't need a lot of help with filling the brow in, I think that one works a little bit better because it is a pretty strong hold brow gel. But I definitely like this one better because it adds the color and the texture, and I do think it holds your brows into place well. Sometimes I'll apply this and comb my brows upwards, and then after it dries, they'll fall a little bit, and I'll just go in with a little bit more, and then the second time I go over them, they usually stay where I comb them into place. So I usually add quite a bit of this product in just to give me a nice starting point, and I do feel like it actually, like, this color will not move from my brows. Like, even if I rub my brow, it's not coming out until I wash my face at the end of the night. Then I'm just going to take the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Tint Pen to fill in my brows. And again, I do find this to be a very long-lasting product. It doesn't fade or run or smudge by the end of the day. And if you want a good brow pencil, again, NYX, their micro brow pencil is my favorite. I love that it is just like a smaller pencil, so you can get a very defined, very precise look. And I'll usually just take a little bit of this and run it along the bottom of my brows. Okay, brows are locked in. I'm just going to keep the eyes very simple. This is the e.l.f. Primer Infused Bronzer in the shade Tan O'Clock. I'm going to end up using this on my face, but first I'm just going to run this in my crease. In the summertime, I tend to keep the eyes pretty simple. I usually like a warmer eyeshadow look, so I'll just typically take my bronzer and apply it in the crease, and then whatever highlighter I'm wearing that day all over the lid. I'm just going to run this on my lower lash line too. I don't like leaving the lower lash line blank, so usually I'll just take whatever I have in the crease and apply just a small amount of that to connect everything together. For the lid, I am going to be trying out a new product today. So I just picked this up. I actually placed a Beauty Creations order because I get so many recommendations to try their products out. And these look very, very similar to the Rare Beauty highlighters. I haven't tried them yet. So this one is in the shade Party Effect. The Rare Beauty highlighters are some of my favorites, and I love using them all over the lid as eyeshadow because they are so glowy, so beautiful. So I'm excited to try this one out. Okay, this one is, well, it looks kind of pink toned in the pan, but on the eyes, it's not quite as pinky or bronzy as, there's a Rare Beauty shade I'm thinking of specifically, but it is beautiful. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more and just kind of sweep it on. The reason why I love the Rare Beauty highlighters is because they're so soft and silky, but they almost have like a wet effect on the skin. And I love them all over the eyes because it doesn't look like you're wearing like a chunky or heavy shadow. So I kind of focus them on the lid and then just blend them up a little bit. And I feel like this ends up giving a very, very similar look. So very simple, but I just think it's so pretty, especially during the summertime, just to kind of keep it soft and not necessarily natural, because this can be pretty intense, or, you know, the Rare Beauty formula can be, but just pretty and simple. I don't know if it's an exact dupe. I have to play around with it and use it on the cheeks too. But so many of you told me that you feel like the formulas are really close. So it's nice to have just another option because I love the Rare Beauty formula so much. But that is very, very pretty. Then I'm just going to take the lightest shade from this quad. This is just the e.l.f. Bite Size Palette in I Love You a Latte. And I'm just going to run that on my brow bone, just so that there aren't any harsh lines. You know what, I'm actually going to take the darkest shade from that e.l.f. quad and use that to line my upper lash line too. I've been skipping liquid liner a lot in 2025. Honestly, I'm just sometimes too lazy to do it. It takes a little bit of extra time just to make sure it's really precise. But also, I just like the look of either no liner or just eyeshadow. It's softer, it's pretty, it defines the eyes, but not in such a harsh way. For mascara, one of my favorites is the e.l.f. Lash Extender. This is a good option because it is a tubing mascara. So I do find that it wears really, really well, but I like that it removes easily at the end of the night with just a little bit of water. Typically, I don't like waterproof mascaras because even though they stay in place really well, they're so hard to get off at the end of the night. Even if I'm using like a cleansing oil, a waterproof micellar water, I still feel like I'm ripping out all of my lashes whenever I go to remove a waterproof mascara. Today, I'm actually going to use the e.l.f. Incredi-Curl. This is a little bit newer to me. I'm not in the process of testing this because I did test it enough to do a review on it. But you know how some mascaras are so wet when you initially try them, and then after a few weeks they dry out and you either like them better or maybe don't like them as much? I'm making an effort to really use this one super regularly because I want to see if I like it more once it dries out. I really like it like initially, but it's such a wet formula, so I'm kind of curious to see how it performs after I've had it for a few weeks. So I'm just going to apply this. It is a little bit of a messy mascara. Like I already got it all over my lid. Because it is so wet, I feel like it's hard to be extremely neat with this, but it does build well. It is more of a dramatic mascara. So let me get 2 coats on and then I'll show you what it looks like on the eyes. Okay, so here's what 2 coats of this mascara looks like. I think it looks good on the lashes. I don't think it's necessarily the most lifting or curling mascara. Like I've definitely had mascaras that lift my lashes a little bit more, but I do think it adds a good amount of volume, a good amount of drama. So if you like e.l.f. and you like their products and you really want to try a mascara that's a little bit more dramatic than the Lash Extender or the Lash and Roll, this could be a good option. I did order it in brown. I'm curious to see how that one looks on the lashes. It should be here soon. So I'll keep you posted on how that looks and also how this applies after a few weeks. Even using it today, it's not quite as wet as it was when I initially tried it, and I feel like it does apply and dry a little bit faster. Okay, so for bronzer, like I said, I am going to use the e.l.f. Primer Infused Bronzer. I have the shade Tan O'Clock. One of my all-time favorite products. I like this because it doesn't have any shimmer in it, and I like a good shimmery or glowy bronzer, but on days where I don't want that, this one is perfect because it warms up the skin without adding a glow, but it doesn't look dry or patchy on the skin at all. It's a very, very smooth product. So I'm just going to warm up the skin by applying this all over the perimeter of my face. And then I'm going to use the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush as well. This one is in the shade Always Rosy. I'm just going to take the same brush. This, I always forget, this is a very, very pigmented blush, so a little bit goes a long way. I like this because it just adds some warmth to the cheeks. And again, very smooth, very long lasting. I'm like poking my eye with this brush. Usually I do use a little bit more of a precise blush brush, but I don't know. I feel like this color is perfect because it's subtle. It adds a little bit of color to the skin, but because it is warmer, it just kind of melds with the bronzer well. So you don't have to be too precise if you don't want to be. Do you feel like I came down a little bit low with that blush? Like I don't want blush right in this area, but because that blush is on there, it's not going anywhere. So that's all right. I'll just deal with it. Okay, so I'm going to try out the new highlighter, again from Beauty Creations, on the cheeks. It's going on really nicely. I don't know if it's the exact same as the Rare Beauty formula. I feel like it's a little less intense. I don't know if it makes that much of a difference on the cheek, but I almost kind of like that it's a little bit less intense. I mean, it's still a very intense glowy highlighter, but if you've tried those Rare Beauty ones, you know it's hard to get a subtle look with those. Whereas I feel like if you go in with a lighter hand, you can get a slightly more subtle look with this highlighter. So I think this could actually be a really, really good alternative. It definitely has that nice kind of glassy sheen to it though. So, so pretty. I'm excited to try the other products I ordered from Beauty Creations because I've really heard nothing but good things. I'm just going to take a small amount right in the inner corner as well, just to add more glow to the skin. Yeah, super pretty. So again, I have the shade Party Effect, which is really pretty. When you want your lip product to last during the summertime, I feel like a lip stain is always a good option. Glossy lip stains are everywhere. Pretty much every brand has done one. But honestly, I prefer this watery lip stain from e.l.f. even more. I probably should have exfoliated my lips because I do feel like this stain, I mean, all stains, but especially this stain can have a tendency to really settle and enhance your dry areas if you have any. But it's fine. I'm going to go over it with a lip balm anyway. So I have two different shades. I have Cherry Cola, and then I also have Orange Crush. I think I'm going to use Cherry Cola today just for a little bit more of a bold, intense lip. This applies so easily. I think the difference between like a red watery stain and a red glossy stain is that the glossy stains are more intense. So you still have to be really careful when you're applying them. Whereas I feel like this is a very forgiving formula. So you can easily just kind of go around the outside of your lips. It's just a little bit more forgiving as a whole. You can go in for like a blurred effect to an extent if you apply it and then blend it in with your finger. But I love that the actual applicator is more pointed because you can get more of a defined look too, which is what I typically prefer. And it doesn't necessarily look as even as like a true glossy stain, but I usually don't wear it on its own. I usually end up wearing it under a lip balm or a lip gloss. And honestly, even just like a slightly tinted lip balm, nothing too intense, will just smooth over the lips perfectly. So you get the glossy finish, you get that nice moisturizing feel, but you have color underneath that stays that way all day long. And then you can just throw on your favorite lip balm throughout the day. I am just going to take my favorite lip balm of the moment, which is the Cocokind Ceramide Lip Blur Balm, and I have the shade Be Powerful, and apply that on top. And that's what it looks like with the lip balm on top. So it looks like I'm wearing like a glossy red lip. And I'll just do this so you can see. That is only the color from the lip balm. The actual lip stain underneath doesn't come off, which I love so much. And this is my favorite formula right now because it is so smooth. It is so comfortable. It doesn't, like, this formula lasts longer on the lips than other lip balms. I feel like I only really have to go in and reapply it like every 2.5 to 3 hours because it really leaves my lips feeling and looking so smooth. And it really does have like that blurring quality to it that a lot of other lip balms claim. It's not overly thick by any means, but it does kind of feel, I always say this, but it has like that plush feel when you press your lips together. So I love it. So this is how the makeup turned out using some of my favorite, just good, long-lasting products, reliable staples that perform well and will stay in place really well, even on the hottest summer days. Now, this is a little bit more of not what I would call like a full glam look. Obviously, you could swap out the lip for something a little bit softer, but definitely like a fuller coverage look, more of a full glam look than I tend to wear like every single day. So maybe I'll do a video on like a quick 10-minute routine using products like a tinted sunscreen and just like a couple of options rather than so many products. If that's something you want to see, let me know. But thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure to list everything that I used in the description box. And if you have any recommendations for me, products that you love to use during the summertime, whenever you're experiencing hot weather, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you very soon with a new one. Bye.